here I am, sitting and playing this game still. I'm going to talk about something else. Recently, there was that video coming out of this white guy with dreadlocks at college or something, and this black woman. She kind of looks like she's high. She kind of looks like she's just kind of bugging him, but she's oddly aggressive, talking about cultural appropriation. And everybody who knows me, they understand that I am a so-called bleeding heart liberal. I'm a true progressive, and I think some people overblow this cultural appropriation. There are times where it's definitely bad. And there's some things that we should probably appreciate. I get the dreadlocks thing, because that is I want to say black culture. I don't know the true history of where dreadlocks came from, but it's very, very obvious that it was not a white culture that started it. Now, when it comes to things like that, when people wear their hair naturally or they do things that are related to their culture, say a black woman has frizzy hair, this beautiful big frizzy hair, and that's the way she wears it. That's her natural hair, and she goes and tries to find a job, but all the jobs are saying you can't wear your hair like that. You have to treat it, you have to straighten it, because we don't allow that here. But then when white people do it, it's, oh, that's great. Oh, that's cool. You look awesome. That's edgy. That's super crazy. We love it, man. That's where cultural appropriation goes wrong. In general, I don't think that people using things from other cultures in at least a positive manner is a bad thing. The guy had dreadlocks, and just by looking at him, you can tell that he appreciates that culture. He's dressed the way that he would if he truly appreciates that culture. So that, I think, is a great thing. However, the other end of the spectrum is the other people who are against the use of that kind of hair and all that, like the employers who are not allowing it for black women, but apparently it's not a big deal for white people. That's where cultural appropriation goes wrong. What's great about North America is that we have appropriated all of the cultures. Our culture has taken from the entire world. We have foods from all over the world, and we're not going to be like, oh, you can't be eating Mexican all the time. You're not Mexican. Come on, guys. We are appreciating the things and adapting the things from other cultures, and it's not a bad thing. I can't find the way that a standard cultural appropriation is a bad thing. There's, like I said, obvious reasons why sometimes not. Let's go with say Halloween and your kids want to dress as so-called Indians. They mean natives, obviously. Yeah, that's insensitive. I also don't think that should be something that's like super looked down upon. Generally, just because it's plain ignorance, I think it can make someone, if they willfully know that what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to just simulate a season. I'm going to go halfway through and then see how I'm doing. Then I'll go the rest of the way through. Actually, I want to change a rule first. I think I had injuries off. I'm going to change that. Oops. If someone lets their kids dress up as natives, the headdress and all that, I think that's just ignorance. I don't necessarily think that they're a terrible person. I think they're just ignorant for it. Now, if they are peacefully told that this is insensitive and they reject that, then we can have a conversation about that. However, if you go and say you shouldn't be doing that and you just flip your shit at them, they have no reason to deal with you. However, if you simply and nicely say something like, oh, if your kids go as Pocahontas, that's cool, you're a character, you're being that person. But if you're going as a Indian, that's terribly insensitive, partially because the word Indian is terribly insensitive. They're not Indian. They're native to America. And partially because the way when other cultures dress the way Native Americans dress, it's always been a way to portray them as savages and people who are less civilized than us. And it's always just been a point of oppression. Generally, when it comes to Native people, it's best to sort of take it easy because they've been treated probably the worst out of everyone in history. Maybe even worse than the Jews during World War II, but I don't know. It's hard to say, man. Like, we, as North Americans, pretty well extinguished. Even Canada, here in Canada, we had these things called residential schools up until 1999. We would basically have schools for Native kids where we would take them away from their parents to try to keep their culture away from them. So they would grow up like Canadians, not like their Native ancestors. And that is one of the most awful things we've ever done in Canada. Probably the most awful thing. But you can try to prove me wrong. If there's something else that's worse, I wouldn't mind knowing. So keeping that in mind, like, do we really want to continue that sort of, do we really want to continue the way people view Native Americans by encouraging kids to dress like them and all that? There is obviously the fine line. Like I said, if you're dressing up as Pocahontas, that's cool. You're being a character from a movie, from a story. Mind you, Pocahontas was a real person too, so I guess if you make it the Pocahontas from a specific source, then that's okay. Semantics, right? This stuff is complicated. But overall, what I wanted to say was that appropriation inherently is not a terrible thing. We need to look at the consequences of such things, like the employment issues that I continually to bring up, because the simplest thing to bring up. When one culture, the culture that started something, is looked upon negatively for that, and then another culture takes it and is looked at positively, that's where it goes wrong. The end. I'll see you guys next time. Hey guys, this is Christov. I'd like you to take some time to think about maybe hitting that subscribe button, maybe giving us a thumbs up. That would be awesome. Me and Sam would both super appreciate that. Anyways, have an awesome day and stay awesome.